Hey everyone, Dan here. We are about a half hour after close on Monday, April 12th. Wanted to look at some stocks we've been tracking for a while and do some fresh analysis on them. We have deleted the charts and we're going to start again. So if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. Please also share these videos if you find one that is interesting to you or that you think others would enjoy. Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, all of those places that you share things is really, really helpful. And let's get right into it. So Gamestop has been taking a bit of a beating recently. And, I think there's a couple of things to look at. One, on the downside, this 112.23 really should have strong support should it need it. I think if we zoom out here a bit, yeah. So if we go back even further, that was a big area of support prior to this huge run up into the 300s. That was all where it got its footing essentially after it ran up, if you recall, and then it kind of waffled around, got beat down a bit, tried to establish support here, fell underneath, resistance, got its support, held its support, and then blast off. So that 112.23, pretty important in my eyes, and it tested it again here and was able to bounce off. So if it needs it, I think that there's some help on the way there. Also, this area, there's a lot of topping out here that lines up with the bottoming out here. So you can look at that as an additional closer support that we would expect to hold. That is very, very relevant. It's just a couple of dollars away from where the stock is today. And actually, that's where it started this big run during the day that we saw. So let's pull up some indicators here that we've been looking at. I don't know that the MAs will have anything interesting. MAs are all pointing down, anything under this red 180 day, we consider it to be in a bearish trend. So right now everything on the MAs is pointing bearish, but that is not surprising. But we know that that GameStop can turn that around in the blink of an eye. So I've found more luck with GameStop. Not relying on the MAs so much as relying on these support and demand zones. So let's throw in a few more of those while we're here, and then we'll look at the MACD and the RSI. Here there is another really good level. We see all this topping out here. Previous support, got it from the mid hundreds up over 200 when it got support there last time. So, and strong bounce in this area too, because this was a pretty significant sell-off that was happening at that moment. And then, support fell through. I had to get caught by this other zone, and now when it had this big run up today, it hit that 152.87 level as resistance. So we'll see. Maybe if it gets this bounce off of this 136.10, it can get that support at that 152.87, and that could be its next best opportunity for a launch sequence. I would say there's probably some stickiness here. There's going to be some kind of resistance to turn into support there, and then certainly in this range here, all of this topping out, a lot of previous support here, previous support over here. So I would look for that one as well, and then on the upper side, I would look here, all this topping out, and then previously was support, and then obviously all of this topping out. There could be a lot of resistance to break through there. Previous support over here, resistance in here. So we'll see. But that would get it back to 200. So we'll see what it can do. On the RSI, let's look there first. So, not surprisingly, it's just at 33. When it started its big run today, it had gotten well into oversold territory all the way down to 20 on the RSI. So, I would keep an eye even in this like downtrend, GameStop has had a tendency to get pretty low on the RSI, like 20 or below, but then have a pretty solid run up to about the midpoint, about say 45, 50 on the RSI. So that gives you another opportunity to play if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for a dip buy, the RSI around the 20 range has been pretty reliable. And then riding it up into the 40s to 50. Definitely if we start to turn things around and get more bullish, it'll be like rocketing over this 70 on the RSI. So we wouldn't have to worry about that if things start to look up. On the MACD, still a lot of selling pressure, and it's not really receding that much. I mean, I know that this high is, I guess, like this low is not as low as this one, but it's also deeper than this one and this one and this one. So in that sense, looks like there's some down pressure there still. And then, there was this sort of like topping out here, and the MACD is still trending down there. Yeah, I don't see, I'm looking if there's any like bullish divergence. No, there's no bearish divergence. So, you're going to need some of this sort of positive on the histogram action to start happening if it's going to get some pressure in the market on the bullish side. So that would be the next thing that I would look for, a crossover. I mean, in an ideal world, we get a steep crossover. Even when this big uptick happened, all that it changed was like a 7.01 on the MACD to a 6.60, and those are negative, so the 6.60 is actually higher. But then it came right back down. So it wasn't even enough to turn the histogram green on the hour. So, take that, as a big factor, because this was just basically 1 hour of big green today, and otherwise it was a lot of red and sideways. So that's what I'm looking for from GameStop. These are the price targets that I'd be looking for. Again, really, really keep in mind this lower level of support. Should it be needed, 112.23 should be a lot of support there if it gets down that far. But that could be, if you are looking to like enter or re-enter, average down or anything, that could be a good zone to think about averaging down. Maybe like one. I would look for the area. I would look to start my average down around the area where this bottoming out previously was, because it may not come down further than that. So I would start my dip buying or my averaging down maybe around 120, 119.50, something like that. And then if you're feeling risk to rewardy enough, you could dip buy that all the way down to 112.23 or so, and sort of see if it bounces there, or use that as like a pretty quick cut loss. Okay, I think that's enough on GameStop. That's nearly 10 minutes on GameStop. FUBO also had this like pretty tragic sell-off here, has started to stabilize a bit. It had a big day. I guess it had a big finish to the day on Friday, a big day, that was big finish to the day on Thursday, big day on Friday, but then today has sold off again. And so, it's this 20-30 zone. Let me just pull things out here a little bit. So that's been holding up for a while. There's all of this activity that has held that price up as well. But, it's just sort of like a continuation of an overall lackluster performance. If you look at this overall trend, it's pretty challenged. All the way from this 47 zone. If you wanted to try to stretch this out to see if there's sort of like a trend line that could be broken here, it still is going to stretch like really, really far. This is like days and days and days away to get to this like price action, So, even then you could extend this all the way up here. That's the weight under which this one is currently trying to survive. Let's take a look at the indicators. I'm not even going to worry about the MAs because we know what they're going to look like probably. But the MACD is certainly gaining some bearish strength here. This red being deeper than these previous ones. That said, it is coming off of the largest green that it had in a while. My take would be if it can recover tomorrow and surpass this green area on the histogram on the MACD, that could signify that it is going to reverse trend, at least for a period of time. And we could also look, if it does continue to recover tomorrow, could it be starting to put in a little bit of an uptrend here to maybe buy off of? Maybe it would build a channel in like around here to go along with that trend line. So let's keep an eye on that. I don't want to leave people with no hope, but I also don't want to fill people with hope in losing positions. So the RSI, as you would imagine, down at a 36. And it hasn't been super, it's just sort of followed the price action. It hasn't been super indicative of anything. Even when it's oversold down here, it runs up just into the low 40s and then still comes back down to oversold territory. It did reach the overbought and then sold off, but overall it's just drowning under the weight of this downtrend that it needs to buck, needs to get out of. I would say, the best opportunity here is that there is a crossover on the MACD. It crosses over the signal line and then gives us a nice bump on a green histogram, and that starts us on an upward trend with higher green histogram levels and lower red, or I guess shorter red histogram levels. It's hard when lower means they're bigger, but okay, that's FUBO. CCIV, also obviously quite challenging. I was looking, just while we're here, at this potentially to be a green hammer that it could build some price strength off of. That obviously did not happen. So womp womp, but so it goes. No divergence on the MACD. So these lower highs that are coming in are tracking lower on the MACD. So lower highs, lower low, lower highs, lower lows, and lower MACD. So no divergence is there. The RSI is at just a pathetic 22. So we have to take into account many factors, but that alone would make you think my goodness, there's got to be some buying pressure coming in at some point. But if we scroll out a little bit, you can see this strong support here at 2094. Tested it here, tested it here, tested it all the way back here. Okay, so there's that to rely on. You would hope. Who knows at this point with CCIV? It's been such a letdown to a lot of people, I think, who are expecting a lot more activity in the 30s than being stuck in the 20s where we have been. But I think there is such a wild zone of price activity here. I would look for it to come in. I think when it does kind of blow like a rocket, it's going to have to kind of blow through this zone, because I think there's been so much buying and selling in this area. I would just look for it to come in and just kind of rush through that zone and get itself into the mid 20s pretty quickly. Things were looking up here as you had a high and a higher high, and you had a dip, but then you had a higher high, but then it just couldn't maintain that, and keeps coming down to this area to consolidate. And so unfortunately, now that we're stuck under that zone, the hope is that it can come up to that area to consolidate. But again, to reiterate what I just said, I think we don't want it to come up and consolidate. I think what we really want, if it's going to change course here is it should come up and maybe test the bottom of this area a little bit, but then just blow right through it and start working itself up toward this $25 area. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. Maybe the next crossover on the MACD will get us something going. I mean, luckily the bearish pressure is dying down here. This one slightly more deep than this one, and now these most recent red histogram areas are pretty low. That said, so are the greens. The greens are obviously diminishing, higher, lower, almost non-existent. So yeah, definitely a tough position, but that's what I'd look for from CCIV in the coming days or weeks at this point. Who knows? I feel like we've been saying coming days forever. All right, Mara has consistently been one of my best plays. In and out of Mara as it hits highs and then retraces and then hits highs, because it does have tendency to have these wild swings. I said a while back, last time that we were looking at, that I would look for. Oh, sorry, this is recent. I feel like I've called out gaps so many times on Mara, but no, I drew this in today. So Mara is in this green uptrend. I won't take credit for things that I didn't do yet. Okay, so it's in this green uptrend. This gap here, I believe, has been filled, but we could kind of like keep an eye out for that. That would push it just under 40, but I think that it's filled with this price action here. So I'm pretty confident in that, but you never know when it just barely touched the bottom here if that was enough volume to fill it, but I think so. And so, what I'm looking for at the moment is for it to hold the channel, of course. So to me, if it opens up in this area tomorrow morning, really good opportunity to dip buy this puppy, because even though it looks like it's holding the bottom half of the channel, which is true, it still is making these slightly higher highs. So it's coming up in the channel, even though it keeps testing the lower bound of the channel, but that keeps it on par with making higher lows also. If it does fall out, I think an area to look at would be this like mid 47s down to high 45s, mid 45s to dip by. I do think that you should have some pretty good support here at this 44.26 because of this previous activity here and this previous activity here. That said, Mara, in my experience, has been more of a channel follower and a gap filler than a supply and demand zone. I don't know, supply and demand zone stock, we'll call it. Some stocks really follow their supply and demand zones, and some follow other things. And like I said, to me, Mara fills gaps and follows channels. So good that it's currently in this channel. Good that today it came down and filled this gap. And so now I'd expect it to start pushing off and continue to hold this channel, which would be a good continuation. It's been in here since March 22nd and it's April 12th. So pretty solid. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Mara. These channels are fun to play. The gaps are fun to watch it fill. And you can just sort of like dictate your trading plan based off of those things. And again, if you're uncertain what that means or that seems too vague, when something is holding a channel and you see the price toward the bottom of the channel, that's your opportunity to dip buy. It could, of course, fall out of the channel. Just be cautious of that. If it falls out, you could use that as a stop loss if you want. And, it shouldn't have taken much skin off. And then at the top of the channel, that's where you take your profit. So you take your profit up here, let it go down, or who knows, if you want to take a short position or buy some put options, you could play it that way until it gets down toward the bottom of the channel, buy your dip, and then ride it up, and we'd be looking for it to head up toward the top of the channel and take profit again. Rinse and repeat. And then look as gaps are exposed and just expect that it's going to, at some point in the near future, sometimes it's the next day, sometimes it's in a few days, but that it will come down or up to fill the gap. All right, hopefully that makes sense. AMC is caught in this down channel since April 5th, so for about a week now, and obviously doesn't show many signs of leaving. It did even have this hammer green candlestick here, just had no impact whatsoever. Not the most vibrant chart, because I would have said this morning, for example, that there should be like a lot of solid support here. But we're well below that now. Not showing much signs of support. The next level that I'd be looking at here is this 758 from all of this previous support here, and it was resistance here before it had this solid run up, and then retraced the entire run and tested that level again. So that gives me extra confidence in that level. So I would expect 758 to at least put up a fight if AMC gets down there in the next day or two, or at any time this week for that matter. On the indicator side, take a look at these. So the RSI, as you would expect, is at 24, so it's considered to be way oversold at this point. Nothing shocking there. I guess it doesn't necessarily do anything remarkable when it's oversold. But every now and then can hit a run up when it's oversold. So possibly something to look at there. If we want to have a little hope. And then on the MACD, everything here is tracking as you would expect. Lower lows are indicated on a lower MACD, and these red zones are basically holding steady. So unless this one turns around, this is queuing up to be just about as deep as this one and this one, with just one basically like minor hiccup in between, which was this little bullish push here, but didn't really amount to much of anything in the long run. So you can see what a crossover does on the MACD, but you have a crossover here and here and here, and just nothing could get anything going. So keep an eye out. This is a tough one because, again, like I said, you would have expected it to hold this, but it didn't really at all. It just kind of blew through that zone more or less, quickly turned it into resistance, but there's no support there. And then it's just caught in this channel for a week. So it has a lot of work to do to get out of this channel before I would sort of like have a bunch of hope in it. If it were to get out of this channel tomorrow, it would need to be at least, basically it would need to be at least about $9 tomorrow to get out of the channel. So that's a lot of work for a stock that's this low in price, but we'll see what it can do. All right, well, I hope that everyone's week is off to a good start. I hope this video gave you some ideas, some things to think about. Again, please share these videos if you enjoy any of them and you want to share them with folks who might appreciate them. And I will wish you all the best of luck this week, no matter what you're trading, and I'll see you in the next video.